The impossible carpeting, and what exactly is the impossible carpeting when it comes under the context of auto detailing? Before I go any further, I need to give a couple of hellos to a few people. So Chris Gonzalez of Pinnacle Detailing of Victoria, Texas, you, my friend, you're the squeaky wheel. You have squeaked enough to get me off of my butt and make this video that, I've got to be honest with you, was not easy to make. Now I've got some good news and I've got some bad news for you. The good news is that I'm going to reveal what I call Darren's secret of success when it comes to dealing with the impossible carpet. And that's your label, my friend. I just call it cheap ass entry-level carpet. Fortunately, in my world, I don't have to deal with the carpeting that often. But with that said, even in the higher end cars, when it comes to the trunk, that's when I get to deal with the nightmare of this pseudo carpeting. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to a, wait for it, Urban. I know for us Americans that's kind of a unique first name, if in fact that is your first name, Urban. But he is from Slovenia. And I must say, that is the first time that I've had someone reach out from Slovenia. Virtually every other part of the world, I've had people reach out. Well, okay, there's North Korea. No one has reached out from there. Russia, no one's reached out from there. But you get the point. Virtually everywhere else in the world, I've had people reach out. So hi to you guys. Also to American Detailer on Facebook. This group really seems like it's just a really good group of guys that just have an interest in making it better for all of us. Everyone's willing to share their experience. And I must say that I apologize now publicly that I just wish I had more time. And this is why Chris has been just chomping on the bit for me to do this video. I just do not have enough time. In fact, there's the other character, and I don't remember your name, but he's anxiously awaiting for me to do my test on the Armor All glass cleaner, which so far is getting a thumbs up. Yes, who would believe an Armor All product for the world of professional detailing? But with that, context is always king. I know Darren has endless kings, and I know I'm talking to about myself in the third person suddenly, but yes, Darren has many kings. One of them is context, and that's what frustrates me about a lot of videos, is that guys do not apply enough context so that you can actually walk away with some useful information. And that's where I personally struggle in doing these videos, because believe it or not, I am terribly awkward in front of this stupid camera that I'm having to talk to and pretend that you're a live person. So despite appearances, it is very uncomfortable for me. I get all watered up inside. I can't find my words to express myself. So forgive me. And I know, Darren's going to be known around all the forums as the guy that just can't quit talking. He's just constantly pulling his own cord. I get it. But that's where my personality comes out, because I want that information. I want to know, why does a guy choose that method? Why does he choose that product? I don't want someone coming on and just saying, oh, well, this is the best product and it's going to make you the best detailer in the world. Okay, isn't everyone saying that? Tell me why you think it's best. Tell me why it's appropriate for me in my world. Because my world as a mobile detailer is vastly different in a lot of ways than a detailer that owns a shop in a fixed location with a more controlled environment. Us as mobile detailers, we don't have that luxury. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature. We never know what's coming around the corner or the next day or even in the next hour. Here in California, it's a lot more stable, so I can read a weather report and get a pretty good handle on what's in store in the upcoming week. But I know there's many states here in America where you'll literally just within 20 minutes, the weather will go from, great to like completely a raging tempest. That's not California. So the impossible carpet, what is it exactly? Well, in mass-produced things like cars, there's what's called the bottom line. That is, at the bottom line, how much are we making? So this is where the free market always is the best way. It's not the perfect way, but is the best way over socialism or communism. It's called capitalism. And I know it's a dirty word to many people because capitalists are just capitalist, money-sucking, money-grubbing whores, and it's all about the bottom line. Well, guess what? With the free market, the economy, the people will always determine who the winner is. And that's where competition comes in. And what does this possibly have to do with detailing? Well, in the free market, you're subject to the forces of competition. Guess what that incentivizes you to do? I know, become a better detailer. You can do that by becoming more effective, more efficient. You can lower your prices. You can position yourself as a more credible authority in the business. Endless ways to basically rise above your competition. So when it comes to mass producing cars, they're always looking for ways to do things cheaper or less expensive. Basically, how to become more efficient. It's all about building efficiencies into their system. With car manufacturers or detailers, that is the goal. And that's what's made me as profitable as I am today. Because that's my goal, is to do something that I love and to be as profitable as I can while maintaining as much autonomy as possible. And if you don't know what that word means, look it up. It's the word du jour, autonomy. That is what almost reigns supreme in my world, is complete autonomy. So carpeting, the impossible carpeting, you will find in entry-level cars. Now, the one that Chris pointed out was what's called a Chevy Captiva, which I had to actually look up online to even figure out what that stinking car is. Once I saw a picture of it, I recognized it. I have not had the pleasure of detailing one of those cars. But the problem is car manufacturers are coming out with cars, and because of market competition, they need to source their materials and their products with people that can produce like versions or versions of whatever it is for cheaper and more cost-effective processes. And that's where carpeting comes in. So today in these entry-level, low-budget cars, we don't really have carpeting. It's not the traditional carpeting. And wait for it, I've brought some props along with me. Here we have some props. So traditional carpeting is like this brush. We have individual fibers that stick up like this. Now, this is the good news, but this type of carpeting has individual fibers. So when debris gets down into those fibers, it is easy for it to dislodge, or it is easier for you to dislodge it and vacuum it up. Because if I was to take this and tip it upside down, I could go like this and all this debris would fall out. But carpeting typically is not configured that way. It's laying on the ground. So the debris, through gravity, is going to constantly be falling further and further into the base of these fibers. This is more higher end carpeting. What we have in the low budget is similar to this. It's like, this is a cheap ass scrub pad, but it is like a Brillo's pad. It is like a rat's nest of endless fibers. There's no consistency to it because the fibers are all intertwined. And the problem with that is, for example, you can see little debris on this scrub pad, and I can sit here and scratch it and it'll finally break loose. Unlike the fibers of this that have individual free flowing fibers that is much easier to break loose, this carpeting, which I call pseudo carpeting, or if you're Chris Gonzalez, you call it the impossible carpeting. And to even further demonstrate it, it's like this Brillo pad, which is a Scotch-Brite pad, that is literally more like glorified felt. It has endless fibers that are all intertwined, and it is literally a rat's nest, and it is extremely difficult. We had a situation that I call kismet or karma. or serendipity. You can label it however you want. My son's ex-girlfriend showed up because they're still friends, and she has a Volkswagen Jetta. Now, Volkswagens are notorious for using this type of low-budget carpeting in them throughout the car itself, and I don't mean just in the trunk. So I asked her and said, "Hey, Kaylin, I'm trying to make a video here. What do you say? Try this on for size. How about if I use your car to demonstrate how Darren uses endless tools in order to vacuum up the debris prior to shampooing the carpeting?" Because that is critical. Vacuuming, do not underestimate the power of vacuuming and removing that loose debris prior to getting it wet with any car shampoo, upholstery shampoo, all-purpose cleaner, fill in the blank. Now with that introduction of 500,000 words or less, let's go out and I will show you firsthand on this car of exactly what I do. Then I'm going to bring you back in here and I'm going to tell you Darren's formula for success. And here we have our car with what is called the impossible carpet. Now I'm going to show you my arsenal of tricks. They're not the only ones, but they're pretty comprehensive. So let's get started. Here we are, up close and personal with some impossible carpet in this Volkswagen Jetta. Now, like everything else in life, you have your pros and cons, your trade-offs. So black paint, we all know as detailers and car owners, are a pain in the ass because it shows dust and dirt. Now, black carpeting is both the good news and the bad news. Black carpeting hides actual dirt, like the dirty dirt, the soiled dirt, better than light colored carpeting. The problem with black is that it shows all the lint and loose debris, like is the case here in this Jetta. So we can see it's got lots of crap in it. This car has not been vacuumed in a very long time. Like so many things in life, and especially detailing, it literally comes down to a case by case. And what I mean by that is that A, the carpeting itself is not all created equal. So even though we have this traditional crappy ass entry level carpeting, it's still sourced from many different places or manufacturers. It's not all created equal. Some will be just more difficult than others to deal with. Also, the dirt and debris that you're dealing with is not all created equal. So that's why you, as a detailer, you have to figure out in the moment what's going to work. Ultimately, this dirt, debris, and I'm not talking about shampooing. I'm not talking about the kind of dirt where you use a liquid shampoo or cleaner on. I'm strictly talking about the vacuuming process. And as a rule, you have to pre-vacuum because you want to remove as much of the loose dirt as possible before you get it wet. Imagine sticking your hand into a pot that's filled with dirt and you pull it out and now your hand is covered with loose, fine dirt. And then you immediately begin to saturate it with a cleaner and you scrub it. All that dirt becomes this mucky, muddy mess. But what if you were to brush off your hand and remove as much of that loose material first before getting it wet? Well, the same concept applies to the carpeting. You really want to thoroughly vacuum it first before you get it wet with any cleaner. And here's my traditional vacuum hose. Is not going to be effective for reasons that I've already explained. It's only going to do so much. I have endless types of brushes that I will use. Now this dirt and debris is only going to get out in one of two ways. Sometimes you will have to use both ways. You can either blow it out or you can either suck it out. Now to blow it out, you can use compressed air. And to the viewer who wrote in, that I've already mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is one of the uses of the Tornador because it's got this revolving tip to it that literally breaks up those fibers. As it shoots that compressed air through this nozzle, it spins this at a high RPM rate and it will literally loosen up those fibers and break free the debris so that you can then vacuum it up. Now the problem with using compressed air, because I could attach this to this nozzle and it creates a very direct, refined nozzle of compressed air that's very effective at breaking loose the dirt from the fibers. The problem with that, though, is that it now sends that debris and dirt flying all over the place. So that's the trade-off. And sometimes you just got to do both. So I prefer, as a rule, to vacuum it up because it sucks up the debris at the same time. And that's where you have to just use endless types of brushes in order to do the trick. So as I'm vacuuming, I will simply pick my brush of choice, and really the brush is just predicated on the stiffness, the dimensions of it, how tight of an area I'm working in, because when it comes to a car, there's endless crevices, there's endless tight spot, there's endless compartments that you've got to be able to clean as a detailer. And that's what makes detailing so difficult, and that's what is detailing. It really is all about the details. So this is why I have so many brushes in my little, what I call my interior detailing caddy, and I'm constantly looking for places for new brushes. This is my latest brush. It's got this little tight wedge, and it's got these little tight, stiff nylon bristles to it. And then on the opposite end, it's got some longer, wider, just as stiff, but because they're longer, they become a little more flexible. So I'm forever looking for that perfect tool, because having a complete, comprehensive toolbox will make you a better mechanic. In this case, a better detailer. And it is very much just like a mechanic, and that's why you see these mechanics with endless amounts of tools, and they've got thousands and thousands of dollars invested in their tools, because sometimes that perfect tool will make or break your world, and it will make you a better detailer, and you can deliver better results to your customer. And after all, isn't that what we all are after? The ability to deliver better results so that we get called back again and again and again. I'm just going to try to pull you in, show you me at work, show you some of the tools at work, and so you can kind of assess as to how I go about this one little compartment of this car. And with that said, in case you don't have the luxury of having compressed air with a nice air compressor mounted to your mobile operation or a fixed location, you can go with what I call the cheap man's version of compressed air, which is electrical air in the form of a leaf blower. This happens to be rated at like 220 miles per hour. I'm a little suspect of that, but that's what the packaging says, so it must be true, right? Point is this is very effective. It's very user-friendly. I don't have to start up a compressor or anything else. Simply a power source, plug it in, and now I have compressed air. I just can't funnel it as tight as I can with this, but don't underestimate its power. Just like when you're blowing off a car after you've washed it with a leaf blower, it's very effective. And it can be very effective. Like if you roll up to a car and it's literally got chunks and chunks of just heavy debris, sometimes I'll open up all the doors, including the trunk, and I will blow it out first. You just got to make sure that any valuable documents or things that the customer will want to hang on to does not get blown away in the process. So that's what I'll often do at a starting point if it's that bad. Now in my world, I don't work on these type of entry-level cars very often. In fact, it's very infrequent that I work on these entry-level cars, but I still have to deal with them. Even on the higher end cars, like the trunks, will have that material or carpeting, the impossible carpeting that's very difficult to work with. So when it comes to the trunk, I still have to deal with it even on the high end type of cars. Now at this point, you'll notice that there's some debris that just would not come out, and this is gooey, stuck, dried material. So this is at the point where now I would spray some all-purpose cleaner or my interior shampoo, and I would use it, the liquid, the detergent, to actually break that down, loosen it up, and then clean it away. But you want to pre-vacuum first. When it comes down to it, it's really about just having a very comprehensive arsenal of tools. From the Tornador, I've got this Vac Master, which is worthy of its own separate video. Don't underestimate the power of a cheap lint roller. I actually use this on convertible tops. I can use it on the seating. You've got what is called a dog hair removal brush. This is literally made out of rubber, and it grabs as you brush it. It's very effective also because the fibers that are intact will remain, but this will break loose all the debris that's not part of the actual fibers. Then of course you just have your traditional detailing brushes, and this is just going to be a case by case based on the area that you're trying to break free or break loose the material before you actually vacuum it up with your trusty, wait for it. Yes, I do in fact use a rigid vacuum cleaner, as you can find on my website. I've taken all the labels off of it so as to make it more ambiguous, and so I can then customize it later with my own set of decals. Really, that moment was not a one set of hands moment. I did my best. Hopefully you'll learn something. With that said, what is Darren's real secret? Okay, my real secret, if you've watched a number of my videos, and I have no idea if this is your first video or 200th video of mine that you've seen, but I'm going to refer back to some of my kings. One of them are communication is king. Okay, communicating with your customer. So my trick with impossible carpeting, so what I like to do, and I teach my kids this, is to always pull back and keep pulling back to gain greater and greater context and perspective of the situation. And let me put that into context in this particular moment. So if we really have carpeting that is miserable to deal with, because I know that a lot of you have experienced this, where you pull up onto a car and you look at just the carpeting alone, and you, in your head, there's this ripple effect, a domino effect, where suddenly you go, oh my gosh, this is going to take me literally 3 hours to get this carpeting perfect. Okay, how realistic is that? I mean, you know the endless things that you've got to do to perform a complete detail in the car. And now you're literally going to spend 3 hours just vacuuming the car? Okay, it's just unrealistic. So you have to understand a few things. One of the key things is understanding your audience. So if your audience is driving what I consider an entry-level car, then chances are, if they had more money, more disposable income, they likely would be driving a more expensive car, and therefore you would not be dealing with the impossible carpet. So if you're dealing with that type of person, you need to be able to respond in like or appropriately, which means that your prices are going to have to be adjusted. Chances are your prices are already adjusted accordingly, or you wouldn't be attracting those types of customers to you to begin with. Ask me how many calls I get from Jetta owners to detail their car. Oh wait, I know, none. It just doesn't happen because they go to my website, they look at my prices, and my details start at $250 and just go upward from there. Very quickly they go upward from there. And they're going, what is this guy, high? Auto fetish? Like, who the hell is he? Think he's going to charge $250? Hell no. I'm going to a car wash, or I'm calling up Johnny Detailer around the corner who will do it for $150. Well, guess what? I'm okay with that because I don't want that customer. Right there, you need to understand your audience so that you can respond appropriately and accordingly to your audience. So that's a starting point. That your customer with this type of car, with this type of carpeting, is as a rule, going to be working on a budget. But that doesn't mean you have to be screwed and take the burden of making their car perfect, unless, of course, they're willing to pay for perfection. And this is where one of Darren King's enters the room, which is communication. And communication is so critical because that is how you will manage your customers' expectations. But unfortunately, most customers are very, very ignorant. They just do not understand what I call the nature of the beast. They hardly know what detailing is. They think, for a lot of them, that it's like a glorified wash. They have no idea the amount of time and energy and focus and discipline that goes into getting a car detailed to perfection, whatever perfection is, which is purely subjective and relative. So you're dealing with not only an entry-level customer, an entry-level car, but an ignorant customer on likely a very tight budget. So that's about building context so that you can understand what you're dealing with. And this is where communication comes in. So now you have to remember that you're the expert, not them, but you. And it doesn't mean that you cram your opinion down their throat and that you arrogantly condescend them from this platform where you're saying, yes, I am the expert of detailing. You're an ignorant son of a bitch. You don't know what you're doing, but give me your money. I'm going to detail your car. And the car, by the way, that you have chosen to purchase has carpeting in it that sucks, but I'm going to deal with it anyways. That's going to go over like a lead balloon, okay? Like a fart in the middle of church. It's not going to go over well. Or there's this, because that's not your only option. You can communicate with them and educate them in the process so that you can come to what I call a win-win. Because if you inform your customer that, hey, you know what? I am here to do a damn good job for you because I want your business in the future. But we have to understand the nature of the beast. And likely as a car owner, you do not understand the nature of the beast. So let me do a little role playing here. And this is the conversation that I literally have with people. So for me in my world, because 98% of my business comes from my website. So I am seeing new people all the time. And I've had to learn over the past, X amount of years, really how to dig in, how to pull the information from my customer's head, because part of their ignorance, the ripple effect of that ignorance, is that they will not have the ability to ask the questions that need to be asked that you can then help educate them along the way. They also will not have the ability to ask the questions that will give you understanding of their situation. And that's where you have to dig in, and you have to be able to get that information out of them by asking them the right questions. So in my world, as a rule, it's always going to start with a phone call. They call me up, hey Darren, I saw your website. I want to get a quote to do a car. That's my first indicator that they have not taken the time to perform what I call due diligence, which means that they don't even take the time to read my website that has all my pricing laid out there. And I know I was reading a post on one of the forums on Facebook, and they talked about Rennie Doyle's book where he suggests not to post your pricing on your website. Well, I break one of Rennie's rules. I have my pricing right there for everyone to lay their eyes on, because I want the customer that's going to take the time to look at my pricing page and save me time, because if they already know that that's way out of their budget, then why waste my time? And I always give a spread. I don't give a finite price on my pricing packages. I always allow essentially a $50 window. And so when they call me, I say, hey, did you check out my pricing page? So it's either going to be a yes or no. Yeah, I saw the pricing page, and I said, okay, so you understand how it works, and then I take them down another course. But let's say they haven't read it. And so let's just pretend for a moment that I've got a customer who on the fly decided, okay, I've got this Volkswagen Jetta, I need to get it detailed, I've owned it about 3 years. They call me up, hey Darren, I need to get a price. What kind of car do you got? Oh, it's a Volkswagen Jetta. What year is it? Well, it's a 2011. Okay, how many miles are actually on that car? Well, I have about 52,000 miles on it. Okay, have you ever had it detailed before? No, I haven't. What are you doing for maintenance right now? In other words, where are you having it washed? Oh, I take it to a local car wash. Well, if you had to put a number on it, how often would you say you're taking it through the car wash? The reason I ask that is because if this carpeting is allowed to go for months and months and months, which people will do, and there's that much debris in it, that just dramatically increases the amount of time that you will be spending trying to vacuum just that carpeting alone. I tell them if things seem to be meshing for the both of us and we seem to be forming a relationship over the phone, because really I tell people, I'm very upfront with them. I say, hey, just allow me to ask you some questions, because ultimately I want this to be a win for both of us, and we may not be a fit. But I can help you find a good fit if we decide that I'm not a good fit for you. So my prices for an entry-level car, a four-door sedan, let's say a white Jetta, let's say it was a white Jetta, would start at $250. And I would quote you between $250 to $300 to make that car in showroom-like appearance. And they may say, oh, wow, that's a little more than I thought. It's like, well, I understand that, but to do it right or correctly and to really restore it to showroom-like condition, that's what I charge. And let's say they're okay with that. We set the appointment. And what I tell them is that when I get there, I will look at the car together with you and we will assess, because people all value things differently. No two people are going to value the same things. And so when it comes to detailing, there never is a thing called true perfection. There just isn't. You can come very close to it, but you can always scrutinize something and find something wrong with it. So when I get there, I will look at this. And if I see this type of carpeting, or if I open up a trunk and I can tell that trunk, because most car washes do not vacuum trunks. And let's say I'm doing a high-end Mercedes, and let's say they take it through the car wash. Because trust me, just because you own an expensive car doesn't mean you know how to take care of it. And I look in the trunk and I can tell that the trunk has not been vacuumed since the life of the car. And now I've got to make this car look perfect for a detail. It's just not going to happen. So if I pop the trunk and I see that, that's where I have a conversation with them and I say, okay, check this out. I quoted you between $250 to $300 to detail this car. Now, here's a perfect example. You see this trunk? This carpeting is not traditional carpeting. It's not fibers like this. And I literally explained this to them. I said, so this trunk, I could spend an hour alone detailing it to absolute perfection. But guess what? If I'm spending an hour in this trunk, guess where I'm not spending an hour? That's right. I'm not spending that hour detailing other stuff that you may value more. So as a customer, you tell me, what do you value more? Do you value a trunk that's detailed to perfection? Or do you value a cabin area or a driver's compartment area or the passenger area or the rear seat area or the paint? Do you value perfection in those areas more than you do the trunk? So let's say that the winning combination in this moment is that Darren details that trunk to 80% perfection so that he can spend the remainder of the time on areas that you consider of more value to you as a customer. So that's where I educate them and I put the burden back onto them and let them know that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of moment. One price does not fit every situation. Detailing really is subjective and relative. Everyone's interpretation of clean and detailed and perfection, it's truly subjective, which means it's a personal opinion. So yes, you can look at a trunk and you can say if it truly was like perfect, there wasn't a shred of debris or dirt anywhere, and yes, the world would acknowledge that yes, that is perfect. We have perfection there. But if you have this type of carpeting, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to do that within your normal detailing process. So that's where, once again, I put the burden upon the customer. But in order to fully do that and to create a win-win, is you've got to educate them as to what you're dealing with, let them know in however words you choose that, yeah, I'm in this to make money. Bottom line, this is not a hobby. This is my profession. And I do this to support my family. And we have to understand what is not only possible and realistic, but what's appropriate. So you want to take them to this area of unrealistic expectations where they think that, oh, when Darren's done, this car is literally going to look like it rolled off the factory showroom. That's not going to happen in most cases. In my world, that's what I shoot for, but I assign the appropriate price tag for that, which is going to be more like a $500 or $600 detail, not a $250 or $300 detail. So in their world, they are over here being ignorant with unrealistic expectations. They don't understand the nature of the beast. So your role is to guide them by the hand through communication, asking them the right questions, responding by educating them and responding appropriately, and get them to, okay, we've got what is possible and what is appropriate. So, Mr. or Mrs. Johnny Customer, it may not be appropriate for me to spend an hour in the trunk detailing your car trunk to perfection. Or because your car is what's considered an entry-level car and it has this impossible carpeting to it, it may not be appropriate, or it may not be the winning balance for me to spend an ungodly amount of time and effort vacuuming your carpeting to perfection, because it just is an unrealistic part of the equation. I just want you to understand that this carpeting will not be absolutely perfect. When I talk to my customers that way, and I do it with a presence of authority and experience, they get it pretty quickly that, okay, Darren really is a professional. He's really not selling me a bag of goods. He's being upfront. He's being candid and honest with me. That's the kind of intangible forms of communication that are coming through my words when I'm talking to my customer. And that's where you need to practice and learn that craft of communicating. And usually what I will hear 99.9% of the time is, halfway through my speech, in 1,000 words or less, is, you know what, Darren, I trust you. Just do your best job. I get it. And that's what I hear. And at that point, now I've just opened up the world to myself, because now I get to dictate as to where is the place that I can put my resources and energy into to make the biggest impact that will create the biggest win for my customer. That's really Darren's technique. Oops, there I go, talking about myself in the third person. That's really my technique for the impossible carpet. You saw the tools I used. Some of those tools are, specialty tools. And back to you, Urban of Slovenia, because he asked specifically about the Tornador. It's very effective. It's got settings on it where you can either use straight air, or there's this graduation of straight air versus the induction of the chemical, which in most cases is just going to be straight water for me. That's how I use it, because I've already pre-treated or pre-shampooed the area. But it's very effective. He asked about doing videos that highlights more about the Tornador. Apparently in Slovenia, that's a new tool that's just come out over there. Here in the US, we've had this quite a few years now. It's one of many, many tricks or tools that I use for the impossible carpet. Chris, half of this I guarantee you already knew. Maybe the other half about communication and reeling in your customers' expectations is the real tipping point for me with a lot of areas of detailing, and that's why communication, managing expectations, defining the difference between what is possible and what's appropriate. So those are my tricks. And hopefully you've learned something. Until next time.